let's pull back the curtain on something that affects literally all of us: global trade. We're going to talk about SAP Transportation Management. You can think of it as the brain behind the scenes, making sure all those goods get from, well, anywhere to everywhere with amazing efficiency. So, how does it all actually work? I mean, just think about the last thing you bought online. You click a button, right? And then, a couple of days later, boom, it's right there at your door. It really does feel like magic. But behind that one simple click is this massive, incredibly complex global logistics operation. And orchestrating that, well, that's the real challenge. It's like a giant, complex dance of data, decisions, and delivery. You've got to coordinate just countless moving parts, make split-second decisions, and this is exactly where a really powerful system becomes absolutely essential. So, in this explainer, we're going to untangle all that complexity. We're going to look at the central intelligence that manages everything. Just think of SAP Transportation Management, or TM for short, as that operational brain, the thing that makes sure every single shipment finds its absolute smartest path. You know, at its core, every single shipment follows a pretty simple four-step journey. First, it all starts with order management. Then you move into the really crucial planning phase. After that, it's all about execution, the actual physical movement. And finally, you have settlement, which is basically making sure everyone gets paid. So let's jump in right at the beginning. Okay, so here we are at the very start of the journey, the orders. It's pretty logical, right? Before anything can move, the system needs to know exactly what needs to be moved, where it's coming from, and where it's going. This is all handled in the order management phase. And it all kicks off with this thing called a transportation requirement. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like the official starting pistol for the race. It's the first signal that says, hey, we need to move something. And that something could be anything: a customer's purchase, parts for a factory, or even just stock being moved between two warehouses. Now, this demand, it can come from a couple of different places. So on one side, you have the shipper. Think of a factory that needs to ship out its own products because of a sales order. But then on the other side, you might have a logistics service provider, or an LSP. Their job is to handle an order for an external customer. But really, at the end of the day, the core need is exactly the same. Something has to get from point A to point B. Okay, so the system knows what needs to move. Now we get to what I think is the strategic heart of SAP TM, the planning phase. And listen, this isn't just about finding a way to get from A to B. No. This is about finding the absolute best way to do it, the most efficient, the most cost-effective, the perfect route. And this is really where the system's intelligence just shines. It's asking all the right questions. Should this go by road, or maybe rail is better? Out of all our carriers, who's giving us the best rate for this specific trip? How can we pack this truck or this container to use every last inch of space? It crunches all those variables, and then, this is the cool part, it can automatically create and propose the most optimized plan. Now, to make all this complex planning even possible, the system has to use a core building block, and that's called the freight unit, or FU. The easiest way to think about it is just as the basic package that needs to be planned. So the planning engine takes all these individual freight units and figures out the smartest way to group them together and send them on their way. All right, we've got our perfect plan. Now it's time to actually get things moving. This is the execution phase. This is where the digital plan turns into real-world action, where the rubber literally meets the road. And the key piece of the puzzle here is a document called the freight order, or FO. So after all that smart planning and optimization, the system creates this freight order. And it's basically the final set of instructions for a specific carrier. It says, hey, you're the one. You've been chosen to move these goods on this exact route at this precise time. It is the official go signal. And as soon as that freight order is created, it kicks off this whole cascade of real-world activities. The system helps generate all the necessary documents, like waybills. It talks to the warehouse to make sure loading and unloading are coordinated perfectly. And of course, it gives everyone that real-time tracking and tracing so you can see where the shipment is. It's even smart enough to help manage things when they go wrong. Like handling an unforeseen delay along the route. All right, so the goods have been delivered safely. Success. The journey is almost over, but there is one last, really critical step: following the money. We've got to make sure the carrier gets paid and gets paid correctly. This is where we get into settlement. And the real magic here is that there are no surprises when the bill comes. How? Well, the system already has all the contracts with the carriers stored inside. We're talking freight agreements, detailed rate tables, the whole shebang. So it can calculate the exact cost of a shipment way back in the planning phase. The company knows precisely what it's going to cost before the truck even leaves the yard. So then, when the carrier eventually sends in their invoice, the final step is to create what's called a freight settlement document, or FSD. This is super important. It basically just compares the carrier's invoice to the cost that our system already calculated. As long as everything matches up, it triggers the payment, and that closes the loop on the entire transaction. Simple as that. Okay, so we followed one single shipment from start to finish, but the real power of all this, it comes when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture. This isn't just about one single journey. It's about using all this information to build a powerful, super intelligent logistics strategy for the whole company. Now, you might be thinking, wow, this sounds incredibly complex. How does a company even get started with this? And that's a great question. The good news is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. SAP actually provides these ready-to-use best practice roadmaps that give companies a huge head start. And these roadmaps cover all the key business scenarios you can think of. You've got your outbound shipping for customer deliveries, your inbound shipping for parts from suppliers, even just internal stock transfers between your own warehouses. For all these common situations, there's a standardized, intelligent process that's basically ready to go. So what's the big payoff for doing all of this? I mean, what does all this data and process control actually achieve? Well, the benefits are huge. We're talking reduced costs for sure. You get much better on-time delivery rates. You can actually measure your carrier performance, which is a game changer. And overall, you just have so much better visibility into your entire operation. And this is probably the most crucial point to take away from all of this. It's not just about getting one shipment right. The key is that every single step, from that first order all the way to the final payment, generates data. And all that data makes the entire network smarter and smarter over time. It's a learning system. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What could your business really achieve if you move beyond just shipping boxes?
All right, let's jump right in.